Well, there we go. Hello, my friend. Welcome to Do Not Talk, talking about the two things you're never supposed to talk about, religion and politics. That's what we do here. It's about time. Somebody needs to be talking more about that. And all those years they told you growing up, oh, don't talk about those two things. It's too divisive. Those are the two most important things. One decides what life is going to be like here on earth. The other one decides what it's going to be like when we leave it. Kind of important. A whole lot more important than the Super Bowl, frickin' Kelce, what's his name? The Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers, Taylor Swift, that weird orange hair clown looking thing that was in the booth with her wearing the upside down cross. Did you catch that? Upside down crucifix. Do you know who does that? Satanists do that. People who worship Satan wear upside down crosses. Did you catch that? Did the media report all on that? Did they show it to you? Was it on the NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt? Taylor Swift hanging out with a Satanist because I believe she is one herself. Great role model you picked out for your kid. I know people who worked with her. I know people over the years, man. I was in Nashville when her career was getting going and she was sucking up to all the country people and acting like she's country. She never really was. But it's easy to break into country. And then you move up from there. And then you turn your back on your country fans. And then when your top 40 career fails, you can always go back to country. I've seen it again and again and again. And everybody's like, oh, well, we sure are sorry you dissed us. Dissed is more like plowed under, disc in a field. I'm so sorry you dissed us. Wish you wouldn't have done it, but welcome on back. We're glad you're here because you're famous. What the hell? Anyway, whatever. Do what you want with your money. But I just know if you really know what's going on, if you've really tuned in with the Lord, you give your life to him, you talk to him every day, you're in the Word, you ask him for his Holy Spirit, he will give you discernment. You have not because you ask not. Ask that you can discern between what's good and what's evil, that you can see past the shiny Walt Disney World exterior. Social media has done this to such an extent. Their Star Trek utopia, as I call it, their one world government. Yay, everybody. It's going to be great. We're going to have smart cities. I prefer the way we do it in the United States of America. And that is you can be anything you want, do anything you want, as long as it's not hurting others. You can accomplish it here. But it takes some work. And it's not the government taking care of you from cradle to grave. Because that's what they want. In their World Economic Forum, Star Trek Utopia. And social media is right in there with them. It's also demonic. It really is. This is the devil's greatest tool, is turning the whole world into, oh, look how happy, happy, happy. Look over here. Don't pay any attention to that. And don't talk about religion and politics. Unless you're crazy. Only crazy people talk about religion and politics. I want you to meet a guy who is crazy. He's been standing up to social media in amazing ways, and he's getting the job done. If for nothing else, I mean, what's the goal? I'll let him tell you that. What would he love to see happen? What kind of world would he like to see with us working synergistically with social media? How do you accomplish that and actually have some freedom of thought, text, speech? Jason Fick. And you're just in time. Hit it.
Here he comes. Riding his trusted steed through the Sierra foothills as he brings you the news. calls himself
Charlie!
What you doing, Charlie?
Sorry, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. There you are. Look how cute you are. Yeah.
Hey, Charlie. What's with the dark glasses?
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ow! Charlie!
Charlie Simons.
Charlie bit me.
There's a tiny little bite. That's all. Just a tiny little nibble. That's all. I am so glad to be with Mike Lindell and on the front lines. Talk about a strong dude. Got to meet him. Got to interview him at the Reawaken America tour. Told him, yeah, I was one of your very first radio talent who used to do your endorsements for My Pillow when you were just starting with. When you just had a pillow. My pillow was just a pillow. And he goes, well, we got to get you back into the fold. And now I am. I have a promo code Lee. That's my middle name, Lee. Up to 80% off, you can save, using just my name. So you go to mypillow.com. You click on radio and podcaster specials. Look at the huge array of products he has now, all made in the United States of America. All from his factory that he has built with us supporting him in Minnesota. You go there, mypillow.com, click on radio and podcaster specials, and then after you picked out what you like, at checkout, you put in the promo code Lee, Lee, up to 80% off. Tell him I sent you. Hello, Jason Fick. How you been, my friend? It's been a while.
It has been a while, Charlie. How are you?
I'm borderline amazing, thank you. I have been fighting the good fight as you have, but not nearly as successfully. Mine's just pointing out when they do this crap. I'm talking about social media. I was recently down at the border. I was part of that Take Back Our Border convoy, and I'd be ready to go, Jason. I use it, little technical stuff. So here's just podcasting stuff. There's this, there's like Restream. There's all these different platforms that you do podcasting through, and you can connect up with your different social media sites, and they will post it there automatically if you want to. Well, we use StreamYard. We, as in Forefront Aerial Productions with Kurt Tashan, the producer of the show, who's not here today, by the way. So it's just you and me. So you're seeing a lot of mistakes and glitches. You're welcome. But we have been fighting this social media thing pretty successfully, getting around. We just screw YouTube. We've been pulled off YouTube. Don't even care. We're all about Rumble. But rumble.com/do-not-talk. I'm down at the border and I'm ready on StreamYard. Never had a problem with it. Never. They don't, I mean, they're like all about free speech. You do what you do what you do. And you suffer the consequences if you step over the line. That's how it should be. So I'm all set up, Jason, ready to go. All these different social media platforms. I'm going to be doing the very first rally down at San Ysidro, which is right at the border, south of San Diego in California. 2 minutes before airtime. I'm all set up, ready to go. Rally's about to start. I want to get all the guest speakers. I'm going to stream live. Gone. Everything's gone. What the heck? I try and reestablish, try and reconnect. Boom, goes away. This is not an accident. This is a very heavily populated area. There's no chance that, well, it's remote, and so I'm not getting cell service because I had like 4 or 5 bars, strong signal. Gone. Then, so I wound up getting as much as I could just by recording it and then trying to post it later. YouTube pulled it immediately, of course. Facebook, I'm sure, is going to as well, although surprisingly, it's still up. Because there were some strong messages from those guest speakers up there. It was great. I'm glad I was there. But the weird thing is the whole signal. And then I'm talking to, I'm watching actually Josh Fulfer from Oreo Express. He's live right there at the border, catching people coming through this hole in the gate. and being greeted by Border Patrol with one of the Border Patrol agents literally saying, "We're going to have you all home tonight." Home? Where's home? You got to send it back? No. He was talking about here. We're going to have you all home tonight. Oh, how kind-hearted. Another one shining a bright light right at Josh's camera, trying to overwhelm the camera with light where he couldn't see anything. He still could, though. And one of the Border Patrol agents came over and asked, "How are you getting the signal?" And Josh said, "I'm hooked up with Starlink. I'm on satellite." He goes, "Oh, okay." Why would a Border Patrol agent come over and ask, "How are you getting the signal?" Why would a Border Patrol agent know that no one else is able to get through? What's going on, Jason? Exactly. It was freaky. It was freaky. They didn't want guys like me coming down there showing you what was going on. Now, you've been fighting this fight. I talked to you like a year ago, and you were embroiled, especially with Facebook at the time. What's going on with that?
Well, it's been a heck of a fight. I can tell you that. You sort of have to understand look at this from a 50,000 foot view as to how bad it's been. We did go after Facebook. We sued them. We took them all to the Supreme Court, not once, but twice, and we're on our third run to the Supreme Court now. And the reason is really disingenuous. I mean, it's disheartening that we're in this position because we are asking the courts to do something very simple: apply the law as it's written and as it was intended by Congress. We're not looking for something radical here. We're literally saying, here's the words, do what the words say, and they won't. They just won't do it. And the courts have consistently found reasons, right? They found reasons to get out of it. For example, we had brought up the fact that they're not acting as good Samaritans. What does that mean? There's a general provision, right? I'm sure you're familiar with self-defense, right? You know how self-defense works, right? Okay, so self-defense is an affirmative defense. It means somebody committed an otherwise unlawful act, but if they prove certain facts occurred, they get out of it, right? They get protected from civil or criminal liability. Well, that's the way this law, Section 230, right? CDA. That's what this law is that protects these big tech companies. That's how it is. It's an affirmative defense. And it says that if they act as a good Samaritan, like self-defense, that's the general provision by which they must act. Meaning that's the foundational intent of the entire law. And we said, wait a second. We argued that they didn't act as a good Samaritan. And then this case Enigma comes up and it proves that we were right, that Good Samaritan applies. And the court said, oh, you took too long. No, we didn't. We literally argued it. And now that we're bringing up this case that is now settled in the Supreme Court now, which we did within a month, they're saying we didn't argue it soon enough. And it's like, that's not true. It was blatantly false. So we circled back on the second run of the Supreme Court and we said, wait a second. Enigma proves this case is wrong. Like C1 doesn't apply to my case. Now, what I mean by that is 230C is the Good Samaritan general provision. That's where the intent is. C1, which is the next step down, prevents them from being treated as someone else. That's how everybody would normally read it. And then the third portion is where they're allowed to take down certain bad content in good faith. That's how it works. Well, Facebook took down my content. They didn't do it in good faith. So instead of bringing a C2 defense, they brought a C1 defense. And here we are. They said, well, Enigma's a C2 case, even though it relies on the Good Samaritan general provision, which is over the whole thing. They said, oh, it doesn't apply to C1. So what I mean by that is the court, in order to keep this thing broken, like this law, just continually not applying correctly, they said that the general provision doesn't apply generally to the law. Well, that's absurd. That's nuts. No, that's not how it works. Right? That doesn't make any sense.
General provision. What was it again? General provision what?
So it's called a general provision, right? Like if you shoot somebody, you have to act in self-defense, right? If you shoot them to commit homicide because you want to steal their wallet, you're not going to get affirmative defense, self-defense, are you? So here what we're
Right.
saying is, if big tech is acting for their own benefit, they're not acting as good Samaritans. They should fail instantaneously. Like, done. You get no protection. Let's go find out what you did that was illegal, right? Well, think about it. They wiped my business. My entire lawsuit was they wiped my business out for their own benefit. That's not a good Samaritan. The allegations aren't even remotely close to that. And they said, oh, no. You can't treat them as a publisher, which is not true, under the first portion, and the general provision doesn't even apply.
Yeah,
Now,
because their side says that, well, it's just a platform. It's just a platform for, but we have to
but they're not.
control if it's like really damaging to society, because well, we're good guys that way. Which is it? And but we're not a publisher. We're not influencing anybody. We're not trying to shape society in any way.
But see, that's a contextual word salad, is what that is. That is literally how they're doing it. The point is this.
I know.
Yes, they're a platform. Yes, they can take down certain content, which is publishing, but that applies to C2. That's the way it's supposed to go. Instead, they applied C1 to it and said, we can't be treated as a publisher. And then we said, that's wrong because it says you can't be treated as the publisher. There's a difference. You have to follow the letter of the law, right? Because if you change it from the publisher to a publisher, well, if I said to you, let's go to a White House or the White House, there's a difference, isn't there? The denotes you know who it is, right?
Absolutely,
they changed the
right.
law. So guess what? There it is. There's the reason why the internet is completely broken is the courts decided to rewrite the law how they believe it should be applied rather than as Congress actually wrote it. This is not a complex issue anymore. It's simply all we're asking the court to do is do what the thing says. That's it. Like, it's outside of your juridical authority to go rewrite a law and apply it as blanket super immunity to anything and everything they do, even like they don't even care about the general provision. So let me put this in the context of self-defense so you understand how absurd they have applied this law. They said let me give you all the context. A property owner, because they own a property, like Facebook owns a platform, right? Somebody shoots somebody else in self-defense, and that person doesn't die, but they run around the property, and then the property owner finishes them off, just bow, 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 bow. And they say, well, you can't treat them as the shooter, which would be the original shooter, right? They change it to you can't be treated as a shooter, changing the law, changing the letter of the law. And all of a sudden, they now can't be treated as themselves for their own shooting, which means
who's getting bought off? Who's getting bought off?
Oh, it's just ridiculous because I mean it's when you have it all on paper and you read it out.
These courts are they're so meticulous with wording. They let frickin' Bill Clinton get away with saying, "Well, it depends on what your definition of is."
There you go.
Never
it depends
on
on what
that.
the definition of
that
is.
Insanity. They're so meticulous, these attorneys, utilizing words like that, but yet you described it in such a way as absolutely brilliant in its simplicity. This is crazy. Who's being bought off? Why are the courts not doing their job? Why are they not protecting us? Is it in their best interest? Are they on board with it?
You ready for this one? You just said, why are they not protecting us? Right?
Right.
Let me give you something else in the context of an affirmative defense. If somebody shoots somebody, let's just say they argue self-defense. So they're bringing into play an affirmative defense, which means the state is affirmatively protecting them, meaning they're acting as an advocate, right? They have to counter that by affirmatively protecting the person who was shot. They might even be dead, right? But the person shoots somebody and says, "Oh, I acted in self-defense." No. You go into court and you now have to prove that you acted in self-defense. What it means is the state actually has what's called an affirmative duty to protect the individual civil liberties of the person who was restrained. It's to counteract, right? It's to balance the shift. If the state's going to affirmatively protect them, they also have to affirmatively protect the individual civil liberties of the individual who was restrained. That's us. Section 230 works the same way. Courts have never acted affirmatively to protect us. Never. They don't apply the law, right? So the answer to this is, and I'll give you the crescendo of this whole thing. Everybody is talking about repealing Section 230, rewriting Section 230, amending Section 230. Do you realize you cannot legislatively fix what is not legislatively broken? It is the courts who broke this. It's perfectly fine, the law. They aren't applying it as it's actually written. There you go. There's the reason the entire internet's broken, because they won't do it. And man, are they stonewalling the hell out of
More
me.
than the internet broken with that. That's the entire reason the border's broken. The laws are in place.
Yeah.
President Trump enforced them. It worked.
There you go.
Beautifully. Biden comes in and stops using all the laws. Yep, we're not going to follow our laws that are already in place.
Exactly. The reason that the internet is broken is because the courts are not following the law. Same thing is going on down at the border. Biden's just not following the law. And the problem is we have no rule of law if courts and officials will not follow it. So how do, like, we're sort of at an impasse here going, how do we even fix this if the people that we're asking to fix it are the ones who broke it and are refusing to fix it, no matter what we say or how we say it?
Jason,
this is really broken.
There's two possibilities. There's two possibilities. Either courts, judges. I'm talking judges. I'm talking high level, folks in the judicial system are getting paid off, are getting bought. Or
this is going to require the Supreme Court to fix
their new world religion, and they're all a part of it, and they're all on board, and they're all Freemasons, and they're all whatever, fill in the blank. This is great, or a combination of both. But either way, obviously, something nefarious is going on here in the court system. Now, you've said this is the third time you've gone after them, and you've make them be responsible. Either they're publishers or they aren't. What is it? And you're not getting an answer, are you?
Well, it's gotten really bad. Let me take this one level higher. So on this latest run, and I cannot even make this up. It's so bad. We had another case that we found, right? So we're in the Northern District of California. We just got out of it because they dumped it again. But we just got out of the Northern District of California, and one of the most senior judges, who's clearly an honest judge, he has literally articulated in a case called Vanguard versus Instagram. He articulated exactly what I just explained to you. He said that 230C1 is being used as a, quote, backdoor to CDA immunity. What I mean by that is that if you can't treat them as a publisher in the general sense, and their motive doesn't even matter, well, they can restrict materials, which is the second part. It just bypasses it. You go right around the whole good faith issue, which means that there's no evidence shown. He figured it out. He's literally said that neutral tools, meaning the regular interactive computer platform stuff, neutral tools don't amount to development. But as soon as they are direct, their intent comes into it, and as soon as they're manipulating content, all of a sudden they become an information content provider reliable for the content. Whoa, that's a massive change, right? It's exactly opposite my case. So now we're currently going back to the Ninth Circuit right now with these two conflicting district court decisions.
Ninth Circuit out here in California? Oh, good Lord.
That's the problem, is I keep coming back to one of the worst circuits ever, the most overturned circuits ever.
Because they're all based out of here. All the social media companies are all freaking based out of here.
But see, they did something else this time. They did something else this time that's absolutely ridiculous. So now we have a judge who has rewritten the law. We now have a judge that is an honest judge that's now contradicting my case, like straight up. I mean, you could virtually just change the names and it's my case, right? But here's a kicker on the whole thing. In the Northern District, we had separately, right, like concurrent with our motion to overturn, we filed something called a procedural rule 5.1. What's that, right? That's a constitutional challenge. That's a whole different animal altogether. Basically, what that was us saying, well, wait a second. The way that you applied this law is unconstitutional. You either have to justify it or render it like gone, like you have to strike it. So now we've thrown at them a catch-22 that there's no way out of, right? Because there's a whole section in this law that says it's not forfeitable. So you understand what non-forfeitable means, right? You can't forfeit it, right? Guess what he did? He forfeited it. I mean, it's just mind-blowing when you sit there. He terminated it without even addressing it, which is a forfeiture of it. And it's like now we're going back to the Ninth Circuit and going, okay, so does the letter of the law matter? Does the spirit of the law matter? Does the separation of powers matter? Does the Constitution matter? Does anything? Does your own procedure even matter? They've screwed up everything in my case, and we're sitting there going, well, what's wrong with you? And the only conclusion left is it's maladministration where they're just egregiously violating our constitutional rights because all they want to do is protect big tech. They don't care about their affirmative duty to protect us, even though they have one. It's insane what we're dealing with. And I know this is not normally like I usually try to come on and be. It's bad. Like it's really, really bad what's going on with these courts. Because, I mean, think about it. 5 years, I have never once been granted an oral argument. Never allowed in the doors. Do you know why? Because their position is indefensible. I don't even need counsel. Put me in front of a court. I could out-debate any human being on this planet as it relates to this law. Period. I am the foremost authority on it. Guaranteed. Even more so than the people who wrote it. Because they don't know how the courts have applied it, so they only know what their original intent was. I know where it broke. So here you go. There's the answer to all of it. The internet is broken because the courts simply won't fix it.
And this is this is absolutely indicative of what I said about somebody's being bought off.
Yeah, I mean, but that's just it. This isn't just me saying it. I've got 5.5 years of track history, evidence of it. Where we're sitting saying to when you're sitting there giving them a constitutional challenge that's not forfeitable, and the first thing they do is forfeit it. That's not us being wrong. Because everybody says, "Oh, you lost. You lost." I lost because they won't do it. You know, what else do you do? I mean, we've literally pointed out they have a duty to protect me. They're violating my constitutional rights. They violated procedure. They violated the letter of the law. They violated I mean, what else is there? I mean, it's literally like the only way this gets fixed is an act of Congress. And I would say that might actually happen. Let's put it this way. There are talks. What these court judges are doing is maladministration. It is a violation of their constitutional oath. And if our courts will not abide by the law, we are a broken America. Our constitutional rights are gone if they will not. I mean, that's literally what a constitutional challenge is. I'm saying, hey, you violated my constitutional rights. Can you please justify it? And they say, terminated. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my constitutional rights don't matter to you all. I mean, that's how bad this is.
I mean, you could argue too that, well, it's not the government's place to, to control private entity and tell them what to do. But yet that's exactly what our government has been doing ever since 2020. I mean, look at all that was released when it came to paperwork from the government saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and we'll reward you financially.
Mm-hmm.
To Twitter.
I mean, keep in mind, we're not asking them to compel.
When Elon Musk released all that paperwork and all that information, that was a bombshell. But yet it was crickets on the NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. So half the country doesn't even seem to know about it, more than half the country. Because there's a whole lot of patriots on our side who are sitting there doing nothing. La, la, la. Did you see the Super Bowl? How about Taylor Swift? I'm sick of it. The apathy. And the whole attitude is, well, they didn't censor the photo I took of my plate of food at the Cheesecake Factory, so I'm good with it. In the meantime, people like Jason, if you caught Jason the first time he was on the show, go back and watch it. I recommend it because we don't have time now, but he completely goes down and explains how social frickin' media, especially Facebook, which he had built his business on, trusting that they were going to be reliable, that they were going to be there, they weren't going to target him and shut down his business. He built a very successful business. Then social media licked it on him and stole it away. I mean, you lost everything. And then with your mind and your legal knowledge and Constitution behind you, you went after him. This isn't right. This fight has been going on for, as Jason just said, 5 years. I've only known you for a little over a year. So I can't even imagine what you went through before that. This is crazy. It's not free to get legal representation and to file lawsuits and so on. How are you doing it?
By the skin of my teeth. It's been difficult. I mean, we have received some help. I formed a 501c3 Social Media Freedom Foundation, right? Because our goal is just to restore people's freedoms on the internet. That's what we're after. You can go to that. It's at socialmediafreedom.org, and if your audience wants to contribute and donate, it's going directly to the fight. I mean, I have, people say, "Oh, well, you must be taking money." No, I have never taken a paycheck out of the 501c3 ever. It has been entirely for legal costs to get this fight done. And the reality is, if I don't win this, I mean, the consequences of where we sit, and it's not just the California courts. I mean, if the courts aren't going to bring this back to where the law is supposed to be, we will lose free speech on the internet because, and like you were saying, we're not asking the court to compel them to host our speech. Do you know what compels them to host our speech? Liability exposure. And the thing is that if they've taken all liability exposure away, they don't care what they restrict or why they restrict it. They're just going to. But
as we've seen with Big Pharma,
right, and
Pharma, when they gave them total autonomy. Yeah, you do what you want, and nobody can sue
you. And they don't care then, right? Because there's no responsibility whatsoever. And that's the greatest thing about what this Vanguard versus Instagram case. Judge Alsop said that if their algorithm is designed, and this is a quote, designed to facilitate anti-competitive conduct, it's not protected by C1 or C2. Now think about that. Anti-competitive conduct, you think money, right? My case was about money, and that's why we're going down that road of financial. But what about ideas? If their ideas are competitive to your ideas and they're not filtering them neutrally, and what I mean by that is in that case was about porn. It was literally about OnlyFans. But what the judge grasps is it's not about the content in that circumstance, because the content, it was porn on both sides of the deal. It was they were helping OnlyFans contributors and not the other company's contributors. So it was not about the content. They could have argued that the content was just bad, period, neutrally, but they didn't do that. They didn't. And so Judge Alsop said, well, they didn't filter pornography neutrally. They designed their algorithm to facilitate anti-competitive conduct, which means that if their rules and standards aren't standard, that they're not neutral, which is what Cruz was talking about when he said that they're supposed to be neutral public forums, the protection they get is if they're neutral. If they're not neutral, then they are anti-competitive, but beyond financial, they're economic, they're religious, they're political. It's all anti-competitive, right? It's competitive to their ideals and their values. They're not supposed to be filtering based on their values. They're supposed to be filtering specifically offensive content, and that's all they protect. You see how it blew the whole thing up when the court said, well, you can't treat them as a publisher and their motive doesn't even matter. No, that's not what the law says, but that's how they applied it.
The latest Ayatollah. The latest Ayatollah of Iran, which is farming out terrorism just as quickly as possible, doing their father's work for his time is short, and trying to eradicate Israel from the planet, still had his Facebook page up until just recently. So they're sitting there pontificating and acting like they're so high and mighty, and they're protecting the poor public, the community standards from guys like Jason and me saying, wake up, look what's going on. Put some critical thinking into this. What's happening here? Oh, no, we can't have that. That goes against our community standards. But yet the Ayatollah of Iran still has his Facebook page. Son of a bitch!
Yep.
The hypocrisy of it is stunning. It's all lies. It's all such lies.
Well, I mean, if you look at Hamas and Israel, right? And you may be on one side or the other, and I don't really care which side you're on. Both of them should be allowed to be up unless their content specifically becomes offensive or harmful. That's it, right? And if it does, then they should take that content down. But should they take the entire person down? That's totally different, right? Because they're allowed to take the content down, but are they allowed to block an entire person from using their services that they represent or free? I mean, that's a whole different animal, right? Actually, you want a really funny one? Here, I'll give you a good one. And this is right out of their own book. So if you like with regards to marketplace, right? Like Facebook's marketplace, one of the things you can't advertise apparently is services, right? So I look it up. What is a service? And it says, and then it gives examples, and it says like hotel accommodations, cleaning services, fitness services, and like there was like 6 or 7 different examples. So those are the prohibited services. You're not allowed to promote those services. You're not allowed to post those services, right? But then if you search those services, what comes up? Oh, look at that. Cleaning services, hotel services, fitness services, all these services that they had said were not, like, they're prohibited, right? They're against their rules, and which they fine me for. Do you know, every one of them I could find a sponsored ad with that service, which means it's not allowed if you don't pay for it. Right.
Yes.
So there you go. There's your reasoning. And why? Because in this circumstance, what I'm saying is it's anti-competitive because they make money from the contrary competitor, right? They're in a group partnership. They're working in a partnership with somebody to force me out of business. So no. You're not allowed to post cleaning services, but your advertising competitor is because they pay us. See how the rules apply? However they want.
Double standards. I just hate double standards. It just sends me through the roof. And I see nothing but that. Have you had this happen recently? I've noticed, especially, they don't even bother explaining to you what was so offensive to the community.
No, because I've
just recently happened a video, I think an interview I posted. We pulled this because it was, went against our community standards. They didn't even tell me what it was. I don't know. And I post a lot of stuff. I had no idea what it was that they had such a problem with. So if you're trying to teach me a lesson, you're trying to show me, no, we don't talk about those things because it might be offensive to little Sabrina out in Minot, North Dakota.
But see, here's the thing. Go back to what I was saying. If you can't treat them as think this through. If you can't treat them as a publisher and the general provision doesn't apply, that means that they don't actually have to justify it, right? They just can't be treated as a publisher, even though they are acting as one, right? That's wrong. That's what we're saying went wrong. But here's the thing. They don't have to actually show that they acted in good faith because it circumvents it. It acts as a backdoor to get around it. That's what this judge recognized. What we've been arguing the whole time is like, no, you can't just say I have C1 super immunity and everything else is out the door, because then you never have to prove that you act in good faith, which means the law's not actually working correctly. There's no purpose for it. But see, as soon as they fix this, because everybody, like, here's the results. Here's what happens if this fixes. If C1 goes back to what it's supposed to be, that they can't be treated as someone else, that's done, because you're not treating them as somebody else, right? For what somebody else said or did. You're treating themselves for their own conduct. If they restricted your materials and they say that they did it in good faith, somebody said to me the other day, they're like, yeah, but that's still arbitrary. It's subjective. And I go, that's correct. But you know who does not make that decision? And they kind of looked at me dumbfounded. And I said, the judge. The judge doesn't decide whether they acted in good faith, meaning the state doesn't actually make that decision. Private entities, a jury of your peers makes that decision, which means that the restraint is really coming from other private citizens. That's how
Which
it
is why
becomes
they won't.
constitutional.
This is why they don't allow you to do any kind of verbal argument.
Right. Because if I fix it, it means almost all of the cases that are ever brought against big tech go to trial. The protections, there's nowhere in this law does it say immunity. It says it's a protection, which means if I'm treating them as someone else for what they did, yep, they're covered. C1, bang, done. That's what it does. The second thing is when they do something to restrain me, they have to prove that they acted in good faith as a good Samaritan, right? That's the evidentiary requirement of affirmative defense. Like you have to prove that the reason you shot somebody was in self-defense. You don't just get to say, well, he was walking down the street, so I shot him. That's not how it works. Oh, I didn't like their religion. I shot him. Get it? You can't do it that way. So then what happens is they go to court and all of a sudden, yes, the courts are going to be overwhelmed. Why? Because they have created the animal that they now have to deal with. They did this. It's mind-blowing when you get it, because now all of a sudden, guess what? We don't have to rely on a judge, or we have to rely on a jury to sit there and say, did Facebook act in good faith? Are they protected? And you go through a minor evidentiary hearing to find out whether or not they get dismissal, and a jury sits there and goes, no, they weren't acting in good faith as it would relate to what a general public understanding of it would be. Boom, you're going to trial. You see how fast they blocked everything rather than the way it's supposed to be, which is only if a jury thinks that they did this right. It's such a mind-blowing change. And of course, then we don't have to fix anything else, because think about it. If you're a jury member, somebody comes in and argues that they didn't protect their children, you're not treating them as the person who did the harmful stuff, right? You're suing them for negligence. And then the question is, did they get involved? If they had no involvement whatsoever, they didn't know that the content was there, sure. But let's say like Backpage. Backpage had a whole section on escorts. They were involved. They were facilitating the harm, were they not? That's what this judge recognized. When they design their platform to facilitate anti-competitive conduct, to facilitate a harm, all of a sudden their negligence kicks in. And yeah, they're responsible for it. It changes the whole internet, because all of a sudden now these kids that, these parents that their kids killed themselves or whatever else like that, because the sites knew that they were harming children and didn't do anything about it. That's not a CDA defense. That's negligent harm, isn't it? It changes everything. All of a sudden, yep, big tech is on the hook for what it does. Big
Jason,
difference.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
Isn't it? Vanguard versus Instagram was the crack in the dam. I'm going to rip it wide open. That's what needs to happen.
I hope so. I pray you, Father, please help him. Please protect him. Please bless him in these efforts, because he's speaking and acting for so many of us. Please, Father, protect him and help him, guide him, open doors for him and the people he's working with. And please, let's bring this system that is so dead set against you and your people and anyone who wants to try and have some freedom on these platforms that have become such an integral part of our lives. But yet they are so obviously shaping things not towards you and your glory, but fully away from it. I pray that you will stop it. You will break down those strongholds. And thank you for Jason. Please bless him and help him and protect him. Protect him and his family. In your name, King Christ Jesus. Amen and amen. Brother, I wish we had more time. I want to have you on again. I don't want to wait a year this time. I really enjoy talking with you. You explain things so well. I learned something every time I get to spend any kind of time with you. How do we help? How do we get involved?
Well, like I said, socialmediafreedom.org. We are always looking for donations there. There's a lot more information there. We are also actually currently actively working on a documentary about censorship and free speech.
There it is.
So
Yes.
we are actively working on that one as well. We have had some investment donations for that, but we are also looking for other major donors. Because it is expensive to make a
I
documentary
know you're not
movie.
doing it for that. I know
No,
you're not
no,
doing
we're
it for
not
that.
doing it for the
He
money.
did
We're
this
doing it.
seriously.
Yeah,
He did this because social media so damaged his life and his business, and he goes, "Nope, I'm not going to let you
Yep.
get away with it." Well, now this has
Yep.
turned into a cause for you. So
Yeah.
I know he's not doing it for the money. I know he's not doing it for that. That's not where his heart is.
Yep.
So if you can help, please do. And it's social media freedom.
Socialmediafreedom.org is where you can find
Yeah.
it. Socialmediafreedom.org. It is called the
.org.
Social Media Freedom Foundation, and it is a 501c3. So any donations are a tax deduction. If your business needs a tax deduction, what better way to protect free speech? I mean, that's legitimately what we're working on here. And we're doing it through legal means. So if we break this, we will hold these companies accountable finally, and businesses will be able to. I mean, the free market will be restored. I mean, imagine like right now, if they don't like your business, boop, you're gone. That's not how. It's not how the system's supposed to work, and that's not
It's
what Congress
happening to
intended to
every.
protect. It's just ludicrous.
No,
So, but thank you for having me on,
it
Charlie. And I
really
do
is.
wish we had more time, but as it says, we got to get on to the next things, right?
Well, and not only that, but everybody has time constraints and a schedule to follow, and I try and bring these shows with them to you during your lunchtime. So if you're working, but you want to watch something while you're eating at your desk or wherever, that's why I try and time this, and I try and keep it under an hour. And I sure do appreciate you, Jason. Thank you so much for your time. Let's talk again real soon. Absolutely. I'm Charlie Simons. Do Not Talk. You can find us on rumble.com/do not talk. You can also get yourself up to 80% off when it comes to anything from mypillow.com. Use the promo code Lee. If you click on the radio and podcaster specials, pick out all the great stuff, the amazing lineup. He's got a store, and it's all made right here in the United States of America, everything out of his factory in Minnesota. Mike Lindell I'm talking about. And use that promo code, my middle name, which is Lee, Lee, up to 80% off. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, may America bless God.